It's defined as a policy document that establishes a community vision for growth over the next 20 years. This vision is expressed through maps and text, the body of the document, and it's arrived at, this vision is arrived at through community input and analysis. And so trying to figure out what the community desires for growth and development, of course, is informed by you all. And so this is a really important example of community involvement and why we're having today's meeting to update the plan. As you can see at the graphic at the right, this is the current plan that's in effect. It was last updated in 2016, and it has a 20-year, what we call planning horizon, so 2016 to 2035. So that's what we are revisiting over the next few months, because the state of Georgia requires that at a minimum, communities update their plans every 5 years. That can be a substantive update based on changing trends, changing demographics, changing community sentiments, or it can be minor. The state of Georgia, through DCA, or the Department of Community Affairs, establishes a deadline, an adoption deadline for the city for its plan update of June 30th of this year. So that's what we're working towards. It's also important to note that the comp plan guides decisions related to development in the city. This includes rezonings. This is an excerpt here from the current plan's future development map, which recommends appropriate future land uses for each property in the city, which is designated here by the different colors shown in the map. And the map is referred to in the comprehensive plan when rezoning applications are being considered. In giving this definition of a comp plan, it's also important to remind people what a comp plan is not. I think it's useful in framing the definition. We want to make sure that everyone knows it's not a regulation or ordinance. It's not zoning. Here is an excerpt from the city's zoning map. This is not in the plan. The zoning map also shows colors, as the previous map did. Previous map was looking at recommended future land uses that may be appropriate. Zoning, of course, establishes a classification for every single property in the city as far as how that property can be used today. A comp plan, upon its adoption by council this summer, it doesn't create new regulations, it doesn't change existing zoning, it doesn't alter the development rights allowed by each property's existing zoning. So it doesn't, by virtue of its adoption, change what someone can do with their property. So I just want to make sure that that's understood. A brief overview of what were required by DCA, as I mentioned, is the Georgia Department of Community Affairs to address are certain topics. So this is what must be by the planning law be addressed. What the state calls needs and opportunities. So we work with you all, we work through gathering data and analysis to identify local needs, local opportunities, and then identifying overarching community goals that can help address the specific needs and opportunities. In turn, a crux of the plan is a 5-year community work program. This takes the goals and the actual action items to achieve those goals and puts them in a 5-year work program. So this is kind of the marching orders for the city to follow, or to be a guide to help implement the plan in the near term. There's the land use element, which is really the core of the plan, as touched on in the previous slides with the future development map excerpt that I showed. The transportation element is what the state calls it. This plan doesn't necessarily afford an opportunity to go into great detail in transportation. This is not a transportation plan. And so we will refer to plans that have been adopted that address road improvements and bike and pedestrian recommendations, and that's primarily through the Gainesville Hall County Metropolitan Planning Organization, which is the regional planning entity. But of course, we anticipate that because transportation and land use are so closely related, we understand and anticipate that we'll get input from you all or feedback or comments about transportation. But this plan itself is more focused on making recommendations on future land uses and development. We also have to look at broadband availability. We have to consider environmentally sensitive areas. And of course, DCA also wants to ensure that there is a robust community involvement process. Some other considerations in the plan these are not required elements or topics that we have to address by the state's planning standards. But again, like transportation, economic development, housing, historic and natural resources, these are all topics that they're all interwoven when we talk about, we welcome any input on these topics and those that I presented on the previous slide as we talk through today's mapping exercise. I want to come back to community involvement just to talk a little bit about opportunities in addition to today, how you can stay informed and how you can participate. There are public hearings that the state requires. We had a kickoff hearing merely to introduce the project this fall, and then at the end of the process, we'll have another public hearing before the plan goes to the Georgia Department of Community Affairs for review. We maintain a mailing list of email addresses. We prepare outreach materials that you may see periodically, virtual input sessions such as today. We have a survey that we've been promoting and have extended the deadline through next Friday. So we want to make sure if you haven't taken that, please do, and encourage your friends and neighbors to do so. We have a social media presence working in partnership with the city, and then a project website that we're really proud of. Or I am, at least. I think Amanda and Sarah and Caroline have done a great job. And with that, you all may have learned about this through the website, but if you're not familiar with it, I think, Amanda, do you mind just pivoting for a minute and sort of walking through? I'll stop share here. If you can just take us and remind folks what tools are there, that would be great. Oops.
Yes, so I should be sharing my screen right now. Can you see it? Okay, great. So hopefully several of you joined the meeting actually at the project website, flowerybranchcompplan.com. As you'll see, we have the little area up here at the top where people could join pretty easily. But the section we really want to draw your attention to is this share your ideas. I kind of caught the survey results from earlier. It looked like some of you guys had participated in the mapping activity, so thank you. But we do want to point out a couple things that are here as they'll be open a little bit longer. The Stay Connected area, this is where you can sign up to be on our listserv. I imagine many of you, if not all, are already on that. We had around 150, 160 people that have signed up. So we're sending up updates via that. So if you're not on the outreach list, please take a minute to sign up here. In the second area, help shape the vision. This is where we have the visioning survey. As Paige said, it'll be open until the 15th. It's really easy. You could just click on it and it'll pull it right up. It's in SurveyMonkey, and it looks like all the great stats we get online now, it takes an average of 8 minutes to take it. So that's a really quick thing to do. We've had, I would estimate, around 375 responses, which is nearing 5% of the population. But we certainly want to up those numbers as much as we can, because the more we hear from the community, the more the plan will really reflect what community members want to see in the future. And the last input activity we have right here is this mapping mapping activity, which is really where we wanted to focus today, because we're going to be doing something similar here in a minute. We've gotten a lot of good input. This is really easy tool to use. The questions we've asked online are a little bit more basic and less focused than what we'll be asking today. But any comments you have about future growth and development or investments in Flowery Branch, particularly related to land use and those other areas that Paige mentioned, are helpful to us. So you can easily click on this activity box, and you can even like or dislike other comments. It looks like maybe some folks on this meeting have been participating over the last few minutes. So this is really valuable input to us, and particularly Paige, as she works with Rich to update the plan. Paige, did you want to say anything more about this map here before we get off this page? Okay. So I'll just briefly scan down the page. You can see we also have the events and project milestones presentations. We will post a recording, and we should have mentioned we are recording this meeting so that people that couldn't attend could get an overview of the project. We won't be posting the breakout group discussions. We'll just be posting this portion, and the PowerPoint from today will also be posted. But if you have questions, hopefully they're answered here, and our contact information is at the bottom. And I have said more than I probably needed to. Paige, do you want to share your screen again? I'm not sure if you have more in your PowerPoint.
Yes, I am almost done.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Amanda. The map that Amanda mentioned and we asked as one of the questions when you took the poll before joining us today, we were curious to know who had participated, and to let you know that what we're about to get into is not the same thing as sort of the next turn of the wheel of a slightly more detailed mapping exercise. So anything that you may have done and shared in the map on our website, that's fantastic. So thank you. Let's see. Okay. As we move then, and I'm going to kick it back to Amanda to get into the nitty gritty here, but just an overview of some guidance and what we'd like to get out of today with the mapping exercise. This is just a snippet of what you're about to see and what you're going to be able to play with. And we want to know, want you to tell us what in the city do you want to keep or preserve? What do you think needs to change? And what do you think needs to be created? You can, it can be site specific. If there is a certain historic building at a given location that you said this needs to be preserved, well, that clues us into the notion that historic preservation may be important to you. If you have a general statement about save trees, well, that may not be tied to a certain area, but it's a general concern that you have. If you want to talk about creating opportunities for more retail, we want more stores, more shops. Well, what might that be? Are there certain locations that you'd like to see? As far as change, is there anything that you think needs a little bit of TLC, redevelopment, rehabilitation, or a change in land use perhaps altogether? There are no hard and fast rules. You can be as detailed or as general or as you see fit, and then we'll take the comments and work with them from there. But you're going to have these tools, some sticky notes, icons, and then some illustrative photos. And then all of this we would normally be doing in person with big old paper maps and actual sticky notes, but we're going to be doing it virtually.
Paige, I didn't know if you wanted to share something on your screen or if you want me to share the mural board so you can give a quick overview of what each group talked about. I know we're running a little behind. I'll leave it up to you.
just a few themes, preserving downtown, enhancing downtown opportunities for more sorry, I'm muted. Recreational opportunities were mentioned, whether it's swimming pool, some walking paths for greater connectivity. And talking about also, reaching out to business community and whether moving forward, how can the city try to attract and recruit folks to the downtown or other areas, whether those are businesses as well as patrons. So I may be missing some details, but just recall some of the main big themes we discussed.
Okay, and I can chime in briefly from group 2. I think we talked about some of the same things, a few different ones. And one of the main comments we heard at the beginning was just, again, the community spaces where we can gather. And we were fortunate to have Rich in our group talking about the city working on adding 3 new parks and working on some of those community spaces where all these lovely events that folks enjoy in Flowery Branch can happen and happen more easily. We talked about congestion outside of the city limits. We did have at least 2, probably 3 people in our group from the unincorporated area. So getting ahead of traffic issues, whether that's in coordination with the MPO or with the city. And then also, we heard about on the southwest end of the city being mindful as new development occurs there that it's compatible with the adjacent residential development, nearby residential development. We also heard about walkability. And I think those were the big ones. Caroline, you were in there for a minute. Did I miss anything? Okay.
Just to close then, I want to go back to, I can share screen. Let's see. All right. Okay, does everyone see the next steps? Okay, so we also got some constructive feedback about concerns that word isn't getting out about our efforts to get feedback. So we'll regroup and talk about how we can continue to do a final push for the survey and also promote the project website because the survey and the other tools that are available on the website are just as effective as today as getting information. So something like today is fantastic, but it's not it. It's not the only opportunity for people to engage. So we're going to continue to promote what other methods we have online that people can do at their leisure. So we'd like to then regroup again before April, probably in the mode as far as another virtual meeting, but probably looking at evaluating or reviewing some draft plan recommendations. And then we'll finalize the plan and have to get it submitted to the Georgia Department of Community Affairs this spring so that there's enough time to get it formally back in front of council to be adopted. Ooh, 2020, wrong year, by June 30th of 2021. So that's what we're doing the next few months. And we then will just make sure that everyone attended here, of course, will keep you in the loop with individual notices, or you'll be added to the our project listserv. And then we'll make sure to work to kind of get word out about future opportunities, which will also be posted. Anything that we're doing will be posted on the project website. So thank you everyone for participating and for your input and for giving up more than an hour. And we will definitely be in touch. Rich, is there anything, or Amanda, anyone else have anything to cap it off?
No, if anyone has any questions for me, I mean, feel free to shoot me an email, give me a ring, anything to do with the city and all.
Well, I would just add that we'll have this mural board here for, if you're still online and have a minute, we'll have it up for 10 or 15 more minutes where you can finish out any comment you may have been thinking about, but otherwise we'll PDF it and close it so we have a good documentation of the meeting.
Great. Thank you to everyone. I really appreciate your time.